Child, I'll be damned if they got me apologizing to Kevin from The Office. Y'all, let's get into The Other Black Girl on Hulu. Welcome, beautiful people. Welcome, Question Crew, and welcome, new people to the channel. Thank you for joining us. All right, y'all, let's talk about The Other Black Girl, which is on Hulu. For many people who don't know, The Other Black Girl is actually a best-selling novel. I believe it came out in 2021. It was by Zakiya Dalila, Harris. And it's a very thought-provoking novel. The book is satirical, it's social commentary on being a minority, specifically a Black person in a workspace. And it's also like a psychological thriller. So The Other Black Girl takes place in the world of New York City publishing. And the story revolves around a junior assistant editor named Neela Rogers. She's a young, ambitious Black woman, working her way up in New York City publishing at a place called Wagner Books. And she's a lot of times she's the only person of color in her office. She's the only Black person in her office. And that's definitely amplified throughout the book and the focus of this story. Nala's world kind of takes a weird turn when another Black girl shows up as a new add to the office. So now she's not, alone anymore. And at first, she's really, really hyped about the fact that this girl is going to be working with her, as we all are whenever we have another Black person working with us, or just another person of color, and being able to see that person's face. But things do not sort of turn out the way she expected it to be, because this young lady's name, this young lady, Hazel, ends up being something that she didn't quite expect. Quickly she moves up and things start to go really positive for her. And some of the things that Nala initially tried to push as a Black person in her office are now being recognized now that Hazel is pushing them. It creates a wide division between them and a wedge, and it increasingly becomes an issue when Nala feels alone, even though this other Black girl is working with her. It's just so many things about this book that were amazing and focus on just hostility and workplace drama, minority trauma at work, the true intentions, what it's like to work with somebody of another race sometimes, all skin folk and kinfolk energy. It's just the true intentions of this girl really being at this company, and also how people deal with, racial identity in the workplace microaggressions, because, they're the only Black folks there, and just the complexities of dealing with allyship and, racial competition and power dynamics at work. It was an incredible book, and now it is a television show on Hulu. So it's a really progressive view on discrimination in the workplace. And I decided I want to kind of explore that and go over the episodes with y'all, because I know we constantly watching TV with each other. So I'm going to go over the episodes two at a time in this series. And so I'm going to cover episode 1 and 2. So, let's get into it. Now, before we dive into episode 1 and 2, y'all, I just want to introduce you to a few of the main characters, because, I don't want everybody to get lost. And I feel like, we got 10 episodes to go. Let's just stay on focus and know who's who and who's doing what. So first up, actress Sinclair Danielle is playing Nala Rogers, who is our main character. Hazel May McCall is the other Black girl, and she is played by Ashley Murray. Bellamy Young, who we all know from Scandal, is playing Vera Parnini, who is actually Nala and Hazel's, boss. And Eric McCormick is playing Richard Wagner, who is actually the editor and founder of Wagner Books. And, that's played by Will from Will and Grace. Now, just a few folks who are going to continue to pop up throughout the series as well is our girl, Garcelle Beauvais. We know her from, obviously, the Jamie Foxx show and being a model, but we obviously know that she's currently on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills doing her thing. We have Hunter Parrish, who actually plays Silas in Weeds, if you watch Weeds on Showtime. We got Karina Willis, who plays Shayna on the show. And we have Brittany Adebumula. I want to say that's how you say her last name, but it's probably wrong. I apologize. She plays Malika, who plays Nala's best friend. And she was also Tamika Jones if you watch Grand Army on Netflix. So We have a nice range of actors to play these roles, and they are killing it in this series, y'all. But let's continue on. Let's talk about the first episode. Okay, y'all. So we start off at Wagner Books, and it is 1988. There's a dark scene of this black woman, and she's walking around and running around this office. She's trying to stuff this folder in her hand, in her pants, and she's scratching her head incessantly as she's like running to this elevator and trying to get in there. She's pressing the button. She's paranoid as hell, y'all. It was given The Shining. It was given like good old 1980s horror flick tease. So the elevator door is open, and we are transported into this like 1980s New York City subway car. We got the graffiti, we got the darkness, we got the dinginess, but it's super dark in this car. So you know we still in that that horror era. In this moment, the lights are flashing off and on because the train is passing, but also within the car, it's really darkened. We see like just little bodies of other people sitting, on other parts, but nobody's sitting next to her. She's completely devastated and like just nervous, anxiety ridden. She's just frightened and she's shaking. She keeps scratching her head and she's looking around, and this woman is horrified, and we still don't know why. We see all of a sudden that the car lights flicker off and on, and it gets really impactful to the point that the last time that it actually flickers, we see this crowd of people standing in front of her, all white folks. And essentially, she is frightened and screams out loud. From that scream, we are awakened to Nala sitting on the train present day. So we went from the 80s to 2023. We went from this potential nightmare to this girl sort of rocking out, waiting to get off the train to head to work. Nala's like jamming. She's got her earbuds in. We know we're in modern times. And Nala is on her way to Wagner Books present day. We find her walking into her office. She walks past a wall that has all the former editor-in-chiefs of the and former executives of Wagner Books on it, the current boss, and we also see all the different faces. Everybody is white. Now, this was unique to me because if most people don't know, the publishing world is notoriously non-minority based. There are significantly more white males or white females in publishing, especially in New York City, than you have minorities. So it was a real take on like what was going on back then, but what still kind of goes on now. There are plenty of articles in the New York Times and others that have highlighted this narrative of how little minorities work in book publishing. But we get to see this entire wall, and almost everybody is white except for one woman. As we get to like the very bottom of all the photos of these different individuals, Nala stops on this photo of a woman named Kendra Ray Phillips. It shows that she was an editor, but for 1 year in 1988. We recognize this woman because we saw her at the very beginning of the episode, and we realized that she was the one that was running frantically through this dark office. So we know that there's some connection there. We all of a sudden see Nala cleaning her boss's office, and she's sitting around contemplating, swinging around in her chair. And then in walks her boss, Vera. And Vera starts talking to Nala and says, how's everything going? Have you read the books? She's talking about copy and all the different things they got to get working on. And she talks to Nala and says, I want you to talk to me about Colin's book later on. I want to get your take and opinion on it because I want to get this thing moving. We could tell Nala is completely uncomfortable with this situation. She doesn't really want to talk about Colin's book, but it is what it is. We then head to her cubicle, and we see her sitting across from her coworker who happens to be Asian, and she's talking to someone on the phone, and she's giving out information. And we can tell that at this point her coworker is kind of giving off leads and information because it sounds like she's leaving. Nala turns around and she says, "You cannot go. Like, I need you here." And she is mouthing the words. You know how you talk to your coworkers and you don't really want to talk out loud because you don't want anybody in your business. So she's talking to her in like a whisper, like, "You cannot leave here. I need you. You're the only person I mess with here." And you know how that go when your favorite coworker is leaving the job. And her coworker's like, "Look, I gotta go. I can't stay here. Like, I'm not interested in this situation." And it made me laugh because we basically found out that her coworker that's leaving is going to go to law school. And it's so on point for New York City publishing. If you know anything about that world, and specifically like it was always like a joke when you graduated from college back in the day. I'm not too old, but I'm not, I know a little something, something. Like you could always get a job in publishing, in book publishing, because it just has such high turnover. So you could always get like a junior job somewhere in book publishing, some type of like grunt work editors, like assistant job, because people always quit those jobs. It's very high pressure, it's very stressful and very demanding. And you ultimately read tons and tons of books all the time, and it's thankless work. And it's an easy job because people were like, look, I got to go on and do something else. I'm going to go teach or something. So I wasn't shocked that her friend was leaving for law school. And we realized that Nala is like in love with her job, even though it is grunt work. We see that she has a love for books and editing stories. And she said that she really wants to do the job that she's doing because she loves the idea of editing books for girls that are like her, young Black girls who grew up wanting to see themselves in this story. And that clearly drives her work. The office environment is very stereotypical of like a progressive workspace that really isn't progressive. It's they have all the mantras of how they're probably, pro this, pro that, but essentially it's always Starbucks, even though and we're not saying it gotta be BET, but it's always Starbucks, even though there's like, they are talking about progressiveness. And her workspace is, full of a lot of stereotypical socially aware characters. And we kind of meet those individual people. We even have a very annoying coworker that she has that stops her in the middle of her tracks to ask her, did she read this article she sent her? And the coworker is white, and of course Nala is Black. And she basically says, hey, did you read this article? And she's like, first of all, why'd you run up on me? Number two, what article are you talking about, girl? She said, I just sent it to you. She sent it to her like 2 minutes ago. She's like, I want you to read it because it's basically about, uh, being a token minority in a corporate workspace, specifically being a Black person in a white space. And she just is always looking for new ways to be allies towards people like Nala, and she just feel like it's such a deep article. It really touched her. And it makes you laugh again because this is such a stereotype that many Black people have faced, especially Black people who work in an office sometimes where they're the only minority, in terms of like people trying to relate in some way or connect. They start pulling like the allyship situation, and like they want to have conversations and like deep conversations about racial topics and issues. And he's like, look, I am not the person, I'm not the minority water cooler person, but they still want to have those conversations. It really underscores the inappropriateness, I think, of sometimes folks in a workspace, and also just really highlights how alone Nala is as the solo Black woman in this office. So once Nala is finished talking to this wacky coworker and completing her job, she goes back to her desk, and weirder things just keep happening. Like the lights are still flickering on and off in her office. And Nala all of a sudden gets this eerie feeling, and she clicks on her computer screen, or she looks at her computer screen after the lights flicker, and she's on her computer screen. Like there's a surveillance camera behind her. So she can see the reflection of herself sitting at her cubicle at her desk. Like there's a closed circuit camera right behind her, and she's seeing that image on her screen. Of course, it flickers on and off again, and then there's no more. And she's weirded the hell out, as any of us would be. It's clear that at every moment in this show, we're meant to be reminded that this is a haunting space. It's a haunting vibe. It's not just an office drama that we're watching. There's definitely a thriller aspect to this show. Nala goes to lunch, and as she returns from lunch, she runs into this stranger, and she sees the stranger, and the stranger peeps around like a column in the downstairs lobby. And then she hides back when Nala turns. So it's one of those things where you feel like you feel something behind you and you turn around and then it's gone. It's like that. And what we see is this Black woman in a hoodie looking and staring at Nala, but she doesn't say anything to her. When Nala turns back around and keeps walking towards the elevator, the stranger actually swipes a badge for the building from like the side of one of the security guards. And we're left wondering, who is this woman? Nala gets back to her cubicle, and she hears a conversation that happened, and she walks down an office or two to see what's going on because it's getting louder, and she walks to the office of another editor, and she is introduced smack dab to Hazel, the other Black girl. She and Hazel quickly connect while they're in the office of this woman. The woman has interviewed Hazel, and she is now going to be her assistant. I believe her name is Maisie. And she introduces Nala to Hazel, and she tells a little bit about her and what she's going to be doing. Her and Nala quickly connect. You know how it is, a little black girl magic connection. Hey girl, where you from? How you doing? Where'd you go to school? Da 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 da. We find out that they have a lot in common, and they have this quick like soul sister connection that annoys the lady that's interviewing her because she's white. She feels left out of the conversation. Like she was in the conversation with them at first, and then you could kind of tell it gets into a thing where they're starting to have a discussion. We find out that, Hazel is this like dope black girl that was raised in Harlem, and she went to Howard University, and she tutors inner city kids, and they're having conversations about homecoming, and the lady is feeling more and more left out of the conversation. And she's like, oh, maybe we could, we'll all be office buddies. And so she tells like, Hazel, like she'll have more time to talk with her. And she, and Nala specifically, but she needs to do some more stuff with Hazel. Hazel starts to walk out. She says, hey, I need to ask you some more questions. And then we kind of see Nala sitting back, relaxed and happy that she now has another black person at the office. After work, she goes to a bar. She meets up with her best friend, Malika, and she tells her that, hey, the girl that's leaving, Yang, is being replaced by a black girl. Super happy. Her friend is super funny and basically is like, hey, I was praying for this for you. Basically, I was lighting intention candles for you to have a black coworker because I know, where you work. Nala's boyfriend is actually white and he knows about the cubicle buddy and he's super hyped. So I'm assuming she texted him at work to let him know what the situation is. He briefly comes in and talks with them. He's actually a teacher and they're working on a mural at the school. And he said the mural's been getting damaged with some like sexually explicit content on the mural. And so he's having to keep watch of that at the same time. So he breezes in and kind of breezes out, but he does know that Nala has a new coworker and that she's a black girl. He said he's happy for her, but he's got to get back to school. Nala goes back to Wagner Books, and Vera, her boss, tells Nala that she is recommending her for an assistant editor job. So the move that Nala wants to make, she thinks that she's doing great work there. She wants to give her a promotion, and she is loving the idea that Nala follows through with her work. People love her, the clients love her, and she loves her commentary and her input. But she says she needs to get information about one of their most popular authors named Colin. He's supposed to be coming in and they're doing like a celebratory celebration of his new book that he's just written. And she really wants Nala's opinion on the book. Vera tells her, look, just be honest and just let me know how you feel. Like I need to know your honest opinion so that we can get this thing moving. Nala basically tells her that she appreciates Colin's work, but what disturbs her is that in Colin's book, which is about the opioid epidemic, he has a black character in it that is extremely stereotypical and harmful. She says that the black character doesn't have any like socially redeeming qualities. She has stereotypical friends, and her name, I think the name is like Shataria, is just also, it's every like stereotype you can think about a black person, and she has no like complexity, no depth. And so she doesn't think it's going to go well for their minority readers and for their black readers who may be offended by the character. And not in a way that we're offended in fiction when we just don't love a story or we don't love the arc of the story or we don't love that, we wanted it to go a certain way, but where it just sort of is clearly not a depth picture of this character. Like it's not really built out and you can tell that it's not written by a person that tried to understand that experience in any capacity. And so she says that she's not feeling it. She thinks that maybe they should talk to him and give him notes. And Vera is increasingly becoming uncomfortable with that. She's writing down the information, but she's also like holding back. And she urges Nala to maybe lean back on her feelings. She basically says that she wants to know if Nala has shared this input with Colin because oftentimes Nala talks to the author, during the process. And she says she has not. She says, thank God, do not share it with him. She says that as an editor, you have to be diplomatic and, you have to be complimentary of their work sometimes. Colin is a big get for the publishing house, meaning he makes them a lot of money and they don't want to upset him. She says she understands her concerns, but it's just not a road that they can take. Vera says she still will speak to Richard, who is the big boss and editor of the company and founder of the company, about Nala's promotion, but she'll be the one to talk to Colin about the book. So Nala goes back to her desk. She fills Hazel in on, because now they're sitting next to each other in the cubicles, and she fills Hazel in on the latest gossip. And she says that the new position is still better. She asked Hazel what's going on and how everything is going. Hazel says this new position is better than her previous job in Boston. She sees that Nala actually has a book on her desk called Burning Heart. And Burning Heart is important because Burning Heart is the book that made Nala want to work for this particular publishing house. It is also the book that Kendra Phillips, the lady that worked there in 1988, helped to publish with another Black woman who wrote this book. And so it's something that drives Nala. She says it's her favorite book. And then Hazel said it's also her favorite novel. And she also shows her a similar, she shows her a book as well. And she actually opens the book, and inside is the signature of the author, who is named Diane Gordon. And she talks about how it changed her life. And so now her and Nala have even more in common. They're not just the only Black girls in the office, and they haven't just hit it off on a personality level, but they both love this particular book. Nala basically says that the thing that she also loves is that this book got made again when Kendra Ray Phillips was working at Wagner back in 88, and she hopes to do something similar. Nala, after giving her opinion about the book, she tells Hazel how she feels about the fact that she had to give her opinion to Vera, and she's worried about it messing with her job. Hazel says, hey, you can't worry about that. And she says, they want me to talk to Colin later, and I don't know what to tell this man because I don't want to lie to him, and I do not like this character. And she says, you gotta be, honest with people. You can't be worried about upsetting him, because the truth is that this is how you felt. Now, Eric Wagner, who is the owner of the company and the overall editor of the company, walks up. He says hi to Hazel. He says hello, meeting her for the first time. He says, she's welcome to everybody that's here. They're happy to have her, especially Nala. He says Nala is like a rising star with the company, and he urges Hazel to come to him about any issues because Wagner has an open door policy. We've all heard that before. Receiving, any like kind of other things, he kind of briefly says hi and then he moves on. One of those things like the big boss comes around and says hi to everybody that's new at the job. So she's still talking to Nala about Colin, and she says, look, you got to say what you got to say. So fast forward, we're now with Colin coming to the office. And why is Colin played by the dude that played Kevin from The Office? And he comes in, he's an extra. You can tell that he knows he makes money for the company. He's a little arrogant and very extra, and they're used to kissing his butt. The employees have refreshments around him. Nala's in this corner, you know, with Hazel, and they're watching as Richard toasts Colin about his #1 bestseller that's supposed to be coming out, or what they hope will be. Colin says that that's his job to basically make the money. Nala overhears Vera telling Colin that Hazel just finished reading the book and that she just finished reading the book, and Colin insists on hearing Hazel's opinion. Now that's interesting because Hazel is new to the company. Hazel says that her and Nala were reading the book before this afternoon, and he is sort of shocked to hear Nala's name. And he corners them, so it ends up being him, Vera, Nala, and Hazel sitting down to discuss this book. After an awkward silence, Colin starts asking questions, and he basically wants to know what they think of the book. Nala, again, encouraged by Hazel, says how she felt, which is what she said to her boss. It did not go over well with Colin. He did not like the fact that she said it was stereotypical. He did not like the fact that she said that the character didn't have any depth. He was not feeling it. So he just stands there silently. And y'all, when I tell you the worst thing that could happen next, which we all fear at work. So after this awkward silence, Colin asks Hazel's opinion. And Hazel says that she thinks the character is incredible. Girl, what? Did you really just play this girl and throw her under the bus? You literally told her to give her opinion about this book and be honest, even if it's uncomfortable, because as Black people, we cannot, and we need to stand up when things are not cool. And then says the absolute opposite in front of this man about it. So she undercut her situation. And I can't think of anything more like defeating and horrific than when another Black person or another minority like co-sign some crazy at work that you know ain't cool. And so she undercuts everything that Nala was saying about the character being stereotypical and says that, the character has depth and complexity. Of course, that pleases Colin. He leaves to speak to Richard. Vera orders Nala to see her the first thing in the morning. And of course, Nala is pissed. So it's a lot of drama. It's a lot of trauma. The episode ends, and we are off wondering how Nala and Hazel are going to be doing, because we were all cool on this first day. And the next thing I know, you sold me out. So now, yo, we on to episode 2. I do want to add though, episode 1 ends in a very creepy way, just the way that it started, where Nala, upon leaving the office, finds a note in her coat pocket saying, "Leave Wagner now," in very bold letters. And then we see the flickering of the lights, and she hurries to the elevator. We see Kendra's reflection kind of in the stainless steel elevator as the episode ends, and it makes us wonder, like, what the hell is going on? So now we're on episode 2, and it opens up with Nala having this like nightmare, and she's trapped at Wagner. After she passes like all the headshots of the editors on the wall, they're repeatedly telling her to leave in this like weird mantra again of this darkness, this the shining energy, like I said earlier. Upon reaching the elevators, you know, the boyfriend is laying next to her in bed, and in the bathroom she keeps going over like the issue that happened with Colin in her conversation in her head, like could she have said something better, could things have gone differently for her, what transpired, where this is going, and where is this going to lead her, because we know last time when she talked to her boss was like, hey, you need to meet with me because she's pissed. She can't believe that Nala did exactly the opposite of what she told her to do, which is just to smile and go along to get along, because I'm trying to get you this promotion, but also because you cannot upset this man who is bringing in our bread and butter. So after playing over that issue with Colin over and over in her head, we later see her, eating with Owen at breakfast, and he's asking her like, what's your issue, because she's got burning heart in her hand. And she tells him about how she's worried about getting fired because Hazel gave her, Hazel encouraged her, but she took it upon herself, but Hazel still encouraged her to, tell her truth about Colin. And she doesn't feel like she's wrong. She doesn't feel the need to apologize. And I know we've all ran into that situation where you speak out and it's okay. He kind of alludes to her saying like, hey, it's okay to apologize even if you don't mean it. And that's a really tough thing that people deal, especially people of color, deal with at work when you speak up as the minority. A lot of this played on so much about, you know, being a person that works someplace, and when you're trying to reach a certain place and level in your career and you have to go along and get along and you hate it. And you also think about the fact that what are you compromising as a person of color when you stand up for something, and as a Black person in your work environment, and you're right and the thing is wrong, and you're being either crucified for it or you could possibly lose your job over it. I think a lot of folks have been in places, especially when they're not in a space that's super diverse, where you're faced between being the only. Everything about this moment, and y'all have to drop down in the comments, let me know if y'all ever experienced this, but everything in this moment reminded me of The Daily Show and a situation that happened with Wyatt Cenac and Jon Stewart. Quick backstory. So if y'all don't know, like years and years ago, when Jon Stewart was the face of The Daily Show before Trevor Noah was and everything like that, he had a writer's room, obviously, and it was only Wyatt Cenac that was like the only Black person on the staff there, like in the writer's room. And so they're writing jokes about like a particular subject, and they do skits on the Daily Show. They do like these talks and stuff like that on the Daily Show, for the segment of the Daily Show besides Jon Stewart interviewing someone. Anyway, fast forward, there was a joke that came up that Wyatt, as a Black man, heard and knew was incredibly offensive. And they thought it was funny. Jon Stewart thought it was funny. And, Wyatt and John are in the room and they're having this discussion. And, of course, John has the final say, but Wyatt felt like he had to stand up in that writer's room and say, hey, this joke is not okay. As a Black man, I'm telling you, this joke is not okay. Jon Stewart initially brushed it off like, whatever. I think it's funny. Like, it is what it is. And Wyatt, again, was like, yo, this is not cool. Y'all, when I tell you Jon Stewart yelled at him and went off about how they were going to keep the joke and it was funny to where it was embarrassing. And Wyatt literally had to walk out the room and go outside. It was bad. It was bad. It became a big news thing. You can Google it and see it for yourself, but it became a big issue. And it was later on these talks about what happened specifically and how it transpired. And at first, Jon Stewart kind of stuck to his guns, and then he had to actually come out and publicly apologize. But that moment resonated with so many Black people who work in creative work and anything where you're standing up against something that you feel like shouldn't be in the script or in a book. It was just very, very impactful. So this moment really hit home and just reminded me of that. On the subway, Nala is chilling. She's on her way to work. She's not listening to music now. She's actually listening to a podcast, which I know most of us do. Thank God New York City allows you to listen to, audio. We got Wi-Fi down there now. But she encourages people to be themselves. This guy has a podcast and he's like, to encourage people to be themselves and specifically folks to speak up when you don't feel comfortable with something. He says, regardless of how you're going to feel, other people are going to feel, you got to speak your truth. Nala feels a little bit more confident in what she said, but she's still super nervous. She then pulls the note out that says, leave Wagner, that she found in her coat pocket because she still doesn't understand where this note came from. And, she just sort of is totally thrown by the situation. She gets to work. The white lady that had bugged her earlier in the episode, or in episode 1, about did she read this Minority article, rolls up on her and she decides to meet her at the elevator. And she asks her, did she get this note that everybody in the office got? I think she said, did she get I don't know what the note was. I think it was an electronic note. It was an electronic note that you get. I think that goes away in 24 hours or whatever. And it was sent out by Hazel. And she goes, no, I didn't get it. What's the note on? And the note is actually Hazel telling the coworkers that she has bought in refreshments for the whole office. And so Nala heads down to the conference room and she sees Hazel in there. She sees everybody talking and having conversations about the Colin incident, low key. She sees Hazel when she gets, back to her cubicle. And she talks to Hazel one-on-one, like, look, girl, you told me you was going to have my back, because when Hazel advised her to talk to Colin, she said, I got your back, girl. I'm with you. And then totally sold her out. So she says, you told me you was going to have my back. I put, my job on the line saying what I said. I really came to you for advisement. I thought we was cool. I thought we was kinfolk. And then Hazel says that she did intend to have her back, but yesterday just wasn't the right time. She's new here. She's not going to offend one of their most celebrated authors and somebody who brings in money for them. And she doesn't want to upset her boss. And she just got here. And she doesn't, have the ability to just lose her job. My thing is, girl, if you feel like that, why did you throw this girl under the bus? And that's when you realize, okay, Nala is leaning back on Hazel, because I can't trust you now. Like, you literally were supposed to have my back in this moment. You didn't. You ended up actually co-signing him and co-signing the BS. I stuck my neck out. You didn't back me up as another Black person in the office. And now we in this drama. Nala then has to talk to Vera because Vera wants to talk to her. Nala tells Vera she appreciates her for, always giving her the right to sort of speak out and be honest in her situation. Vera tells Nala that, she appreciates her coming to her and apologizing to her for what happened with Colin. Because Nala doesn't say that she's upset about what she said. She just tells Vera that she's sorry for putting her in the position to where she has to deal with the Colin situation now. Nala also suggests that possibly maybe her opinion is, something that Colin would not take completely without some sort of backup from the company. And something that happens sometimes in publishing is, if there is a book that includes minorities, that includes other things, sometimes they will have like a third party person read the content for sensitivity level. So you have like an unbiased person that reads the book and goes, okay, this could possibly be offensive, or maybe you want to think about and give notes. So she says, hey, why don't we have that for Colin? Have a third party sensitivity reader come in. They'll look at the content and they can polish up the novel so that there will be no issues once we publish it. Because, you don't want a negative issue with the publishing houses. Because if you have to pull books, that's money loss. So Vera warns that it would be not comfortable for Colin if they were to bring in somebody and, she doesn't think that it's a good idea that they bring in somebody to go over the book. Um, and she also thinks that Nala needs to apologize to Colin. So after talking with her boss, we see Nala at her friend, her bestie Malika's house. And Malika's having like a party, a homecoming party or something like that. And she shows Malika like the note, and she also tells her boyfriend Owen about the note. And they read the note and they're like, Malika saying, hey, this is a hate crime. Like, what's going on? Somebody telling you to leave your job? Like, what's going on? This seems racially motivated. And Malika thinks that Colin is actually the person behind the note. Now, as far as we know, Colin pops in and out, but she's feeling like Colin has something to do with it because they also know the backstory right now about Nala and, what's been going on. Owen asked Nala, you know, he wants to know when she was acting weird earlier, not knowing what happened when she was over, thinking the conversation or having these like nightmarish moments. Is this why she was acting, kind of awkward at breakfast? And she basically says that, she feels like, she's been at this job for a long time. And that's really what her issue was this morning, because she's been at this job for, I think she's been working there 2 years now. And she doesn't want her career to amount to nothing because of this moment with this man. And her boyfriend and her bestie are like, look, you need to maybe just leave that job. You need to maybe quit. Like, maybe it's best that you do go. If this type of stuff is happening creepy, you feel like you're being discriminated against, you need to go. And I think we all know and have experienced moments where we feel like we need to just leave something because it is not in our favor. And it's easier said than done. Because Nala is passionate about what she wants to do. She doesn't want this one thing to drive her off. And she feels like she could probably figure it out. So Nala's back at work. She's getting a little bit weirded out though, and she's getting a little uncomfortable because she gets a little, nervous about, like, she thinks she's hearing things and seeing things. So she like takes this like stapler because it's late, and she like creeps around like the Wagner books, and she's looking to see like, where is this sound coming from? Like, where I'm just, she's seeing things, and it's going back into like the horror flick era of the episode and really of the book. Because at every moment, we have these really clear moments throughout the day and the daytime. We're just seeing like the regular corporate situation, but they always kind of remind us this is something weird about this damn place. And she ends up finding herself in the archives room of the building. She spends like the rest of the night reading Burning Heart, and she actually pulls out all these different artifacts from when Burning Heart was published. Because, when you're running up for like a book situation, there's all these different things that are aligned with it. You got the cover, the things that inspired the cover, all those little artifacts get archived by a book so they can pull out, the original manuscript, all that kind of stuff. So we see Nala kind of sitting on the floor reading through all of that stuff and going over the materials and being immersed in the world of this book that she loved. This must make her feel amazing, because the next day Nala comes in with the energy of everything, honey. When I tell you, she's saying hi to every coworker and how you doing. She's making little jokes on the side. She's giving like a little, blow kiss here, a little hey here. She's even making fun of her other coworker and mentions her cat or the lady's cats, like everything about that situation. She's so inspired by the book that Nala goes to her desk. Hazel tries to talk to her. Nala ignores her and basically, goes to Vera's office, and they, have this conversation. And Vera definitely thought the conversation was going to go differently. Nala actually comes to Vera saying, hey, I got this amazing idea. Why don't we try to get a reading going with Diana Gordon, who is the writer of Burning Heart, and Kendra Phillips, the lady that used to work here to help edit it. It's been 35 years since the book got published. This would be amazing for us. It would be an amazing arc of these two Black women that, like, struck gold essentially at this place and created history. And this is on the anniversary of this book being written. And Vera hears it and goes, I don't think that's going to happen. So Vera goes, first of all, nobody has seen Kendra Ray since this book was edited back in 88. And Diana might do it, but she knows Kendra Ray probably won't do it. This lady has basically been off of the grid. And so, the idea of her coming in and having this conversation, the idea of her writing a foreword about this book that she helped bring to life is just not going to do it. And Vera also says that Nala's only bringing this idea to her because she wants to try to, put it in place of not having the conversation, the tough conversation of having to apologize to Colin. And she's trying to like do this so she doesn't have to apologize to him. And that's probably not going to happen either. Vera explains to her that she knows Kendra Ray because she actually used to work for her. So we basically find out that Kendra Ray Phillips, who, remember, only worked here in 1988 for 1 year, does this brilliant job and then disappears. This woman who used to do what Nala was doing for her is now in a spot that she used to be in. And she used to work for her. She said she used to get her lunch order. Vera then says, look, we got to have a talk. We need to have a deeper conversation. So she walks into this room with this graphic editor sitting. This guy is sitting here like minding his business, going through that. And behind her, we see all these large, posters that have different book covers of the Needles and Pens book, because that is the name of Colin's new book. I'm sorry, Pens and Needles is the name of Colin's new book. So she's telling Nala, look, we need to have a one-on-one situation. She says that she is only doing her job, and she tries to have this lean in moment with Nala that it's reminiscent of so many other moments that get missed so often with women who think that they're doing you a favor. But I also feel like it was a way of her talking to Nala to try to like save her situation. So she asked the guy in the room who's a graphic editor, can we have the room? And he says, this is my office. And she says, I know, but can we please have the room? So the guy leaves and he gives them privacy. And once they're there, she sort of says to Nala, like, hey, this is an editor's job. I know it doesn't seem great. I know it sucks to have to apologize or have to like constantly coddle these authors, but it really is the situation at hand. You see what other people need and you know it before they need it and you give them what they need. She like tells Nala, look, truly think about your future. I don't want you to leave, but I think you really need to consider apologizing to Colin. This is the work. Nala is feeling just depressed when she leaves that conversation with Vera. She's feeling down, like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to quit this job. I don't want this time that I've been here to be for nothing. At the same time, this shit is weighing on my soul. Hazel comes into the bathroom because this is where Nala is contemplating all these things in front of the mirror. And she says to Nala, like, what's going on, girl? And of course, Nala is still pissed. She's like, look, girl, don't be trying to be my friend right now. You literally sold me out yesterday. Part of the reason I'm in this stress is because of you. And Hazel says, well, hold up. I was just trying to encourage you to do the right thing. And Nala says, yeah, but you didn't have my back when I was doing the right thing. So whether or not you were trying to encourage me, you didn't stand with me in that moment. And it made me feel more alone. And it made me feel like I was by myself. You really weren't my ally in that moment. And you should have been. Hazel says that she was trying, and Nala says that she doesn't say, but she kind of gives this feeling of like, okay, I'm trying to be better because you are the only Black girl here. I'm going to try to believe that you were trying your best to do what you were trying to do to support me, but you really underscored me. You seem like you get it. Like, let's move past it. But you could tell she's not completely forgiving her, and she's kind of keeping one eye open. Nala does tell her that the other frustration she's having right now is she suggested a sensitivity reader for Colin's book, and Vera still turned that down. Now, Hazel says she thinks it's a good idea, and she will support Nala in this moment with this particular thing. And she says, like, hey, if you bring it up and we're in our meeting, because they have to have a meeting later on, I will support your idea. So I promise I'll have your back this time. Colin comes back to the office. He says, he's standing by her desk, and he says the most insidious thing that is just full of so much smugness. He comes by her desk when Vera is standing there, and he goes, when is this thing going to happen? He means the apology, because Nala hasn't said sorry yet. She's back at her cubicle, and so is Hazel, and they walk to Nala's desk, and it's Vera and Colin standing there. He goes, I have a niece that wants to work in publishing, essentially saying, this girl should be fired if she doesn't apologize. And then one of his family members could take her spot. It was very condescending. So Nala sucks it up. Initially, she tells Colin that she feels bad that things happened the way they happened, but she leaves it there at first, and he is not feeling that as an apology. So then she proceeds to go deeper and says that she feels upset, and Nala basically says that she is sorry that she didn't think that the character was complex enough, and that it is, and that she doesn't want him to feel bad about the situation. And of course he starts grinning as soon as he realizes that this girl has to like grovel to um the situation. And Colin is just on his, cloud nine because of that situation. Nala also texts her friend to let her know, her bestie, that she had to apologize. And then she, continues her work. They have a meeting in a conference room later with Vera, Richard, Hazel, and Nala are there. And they're talking about like a photo for Colin's book and for his profile. And Vera does take Nala's suggestion. However, she does not credit her for it. So she says, hey, we're loving the book, this and that. We think this is great. We do think that we want to add a sensitivity reader in to maybe just look over the book once and make sure everything is okay. Now, this is something that definitely, again, just hit me with like, oh my gosh, this is weird, right? I couldn't tell in this moment, and I think it's meant to say that she would have never given Nala the credit for the sensitivity reader situation. But I wondered if Vera was bringing it up because initially I wondered if Vera was bringing it up because she was trying to be the vessel that it came through. Because sometimes when you do work in work situations, even if you feel passionate about different things and you feel like you should get credit, sometimes who it's delivered by makes a difference in the customer. It's unfortunate that this happens, but it's true. Whether regardless of race, age, whatever, gender, it could just be that's how it is. Like that person feels better it coming from a person higher up or whatever. So even when people have to ghost emails or they have to do other things, it's because sometimes the deliverer of the message needs to be a different person, unfortunately, even if you're the best person that came, with that idea. So Nala, Vera basically says like, hey, we should get a sensitivity reader. Their boss, Mr. Wagner says he thinks it's a good idea. The problem is that nobody knows it came from Nala. So Hazel does what she promised to do. And she says, wait a minute, Nala, wasn't the sensitivity reader your idea? And then Vera's face kind of goes, oh God, I got caught. So she goes, yeah, my bad. I always forget stuff like that. It was Nala's idea. And then, Richard goes, thank you, Nala, for that. And of course, Colin is pissed that it was Nala's idea. So in that moment, Hazel did have Nala's back. Nala's happy. She's leaving on cloud nine. She got a recommendation. The boss liked what she had to say. And even though she had to apologize, the world seems back right. On the subway ride home, Nala is reading Burning Heart again. She's looking through Burning Heart and she finds an apology note from Kendra in the book. And remember, she has the archival copy, I believe, of the book now because she had gone through it. An apology note says, it didn't have to be this way, please. And it is from Diana, the lady who wrote the book. So the Black woman who wrote the book, there's a note to her there's a note from Diana to Kendra saying, it didn't have to be this way, please, from Diana. We later on see Nala with her boyfriend Owen, and they're watching some TV show, and Nala is in there curled up with her man, and we have a viewpoint out the window, and we see Hazel at the corner across the street from their house, looking up into their window in the most creepingly fashion. When I tell y'all, they do such an amazing job every single time with this show about how they put together these like horrific moments, these like thriller moments where you think you know what's going to happen in the next scene and then So what we do know is Hazel is creepy. She's at the corner looking through this lady window, peering after work. You didn't come with me home. You didn't follow me home. What you doing here? Episode 1 and 2 were everything. They draw you in. They make you want more. I'm excited to talk with y'all about 3 and 4 coming up soon. Thank you for chilling with me. I hope that we can watch this together. Let me know in the comments, how did you like the episodes? If you've already seen them, if this is making you want to watch the show. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.